Hey everybody, AstartesGaming here, back with part 16 of our look at the design journals for Chronicles of Elyria. So design journal 16 touches on the weight and measure of a lifetime, and it's going to go into sort of how the different character system works in the game, so how you're going to pass from one character to the next. And it also kind of touches on the payment plan for the game, I believe. So let's go ahead and jump in. Actually, before we do that, I just wanted to mention a couple things. So first off, I apologize for the videos being a little bit light this weekend. I think I'm only posting like one video a day this weekend because I've got a lot going on with school. So hopefully once that's all sorted out, I can get back to doing like 2 videos a day. Also, as many of you have noticed, we've hit 1,000 subscribers very recently, so expect a live stream somewhere in the near future. I don't know exactly what day is going to work best yet, but I am planning on doing like a live stream, and I'll do like some kind of giveaway during that. So, yeah, that's the plan. Let's go ahead and dive in. So hi folks, welcome to the first design journal of 2016. This one doesn't have any fancy screenshots as it normally would, as it's not about what we've added to the world and is instead about our business model. Okay, so it is going to touch on that. Over the last few months, Chronicles of Elyria has been gaining more and more attention, and with the added attention comes quick judgments, assumptions, and while not intentional, miscommunications. Perhaps the most widely miscommunicated bit of information is how spirit walking affects your overall playtime and how that affects your wallet. Given that, I want to take this opportunity to nail down the specific details regarding the lifespan of characters in Chronicles of Elyria and touch on the death toll that's applied to your character anytime they spirit walk. And so we're going to scroll down so you guys can see this. There's a quote by H.G. Wells there. It says, "By the toll of 1,000,000,000 deaths, man has bought his birthright of the earth." So the Illyrian lifespan. Illyrians are for the most part a healthy breed, and while children of man, that's M-A-N-N, are not human, their anatomy and physiology is similar to our own. As a result, the typical Illyrian lives somewhere between 80 and 120 years, the averaging about 100 years, based on the genetics of their bloodline. In addition, you take control of your Illyrian at age 12 or 15, depending on whether you're creating a ward or joining a family. We assume most people will want to join a family, at least for the first few lives, and so for the remainder of this journal, I'll assume you created a family member. Given that Illyrians naturally live between 80 and 120 years, and you gain control at age 15, that means you have between 65 and 105, with an average of 85, Illyrian years of playtime. Now, an Illyrian year is 100 real-world hours. That equates to roughly 4 days. It's not very long. Doing the math, that means that if I divide both 6,500 and 10,500 by 24 hours per day, that ends up being between 271 and 435 days. If we drop the decimals, you're looking at, basically what I just said. An average of about 354 days of playtime. At 354 average days of play and 365 days per Earth year, it means you're looking at an average of a week and a half shy of 1 year of play per spark of life. So basically what they're saying there is your character in real world time is going to live about a year. So he'll live about 100 years in the game. In real life, that's about 1 year. So lifespan, about 1 year. That means if you're going to be paying for, paying per life, you're basically going to be paying like a yearly subscription, roughly. So, for whom the bell tolls, those numbers are great and all, but it assumes your character lives a long, healthy life with no spirit loss. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we all know Elyria is a dangerous place, so let's talk briefly about spirit loss. To begin with, the base spirit loss for a death is 2 real-life days of play each time you are forced to spirit walk. So basically from that 354 days, you lose 2, so now you're at 352 days, 350 days, etc., etc. So that means that if you are someone who dies very rarely, maybe once per month, and would have otherwise lived an average lifespan of approximately 12 months, then at the 11th month mark, you would have shaved off approximately 22 days of playtime, ending your character's lifespan. Put differently, someone who dies on average once per month can expect to live an average of 11 months without needing to buy a new Spark of Life. Once a month seems pretty often. Like, if you die once a month, that's... I don't know. I mean, maybe you're doing a lot of PvP or something. They said very rarely, but to me that seems a little bit more frequent than I would assume. So now let's assume that you die a bit more frequently, maybe once per week. Each death would shave off the same 2 days of playtime. As a result, every 7 days would actually count as 9 days of playtime. If you divided the average of 354 by 9, you get approximately 39 weeks. So if you're someone who dies an average of once per week, you can expect to live approximately 8.75 months, so about 9 months, without needing to buy a new Spark of Life. Continuing on with the same model, if you died an average of 2 or 3 times per week, you could expect to live for either 7.25 months or 6 months, rounded to the nearest week respectively. Now let's assume you die very frequently. You're out adventuring every day, doing extremely dangerous activities. Every day you die once. That means every day counts as 3 days of playtime. The average of 354 divided by 3 is 118 days. That's 16 weeks, or approximately 3.75 months before you need to buy a new Spark of Life. I know what you're thinking. 3.75 months, that sounds like a very short period of time. It does sound like a short period of time. However, there's 2 things to remember. First, that number is if you die every day. If you even skip a day between deaths, that increases all the way to 5.5 months. So if you don't play 7 days a week, or maybe just 4 or 5, if you die each time you play, or even twice each time you play, you're still looking at roughly 6 months of play. The other thing to consider is that the cost of a Spark of Life. Sorry, let's just start over with that. The other thing to consider is the cost of a Spark of Life. You only live 3.75 months, then for our currently estimated price of $29.99 per Spark of Life, it still means you're only paying approximately $7.99 per month. That's half the price of a WoW subscription. That's right, if you're an active, daring player who plays every single day and manages to die every single day, you can continue to play Chronicles of Elyria for half the price of a WoW subscription. On the other hand, if you manage to cheat death, don't play regularly, or do so in the safety of a hamlet, town, or city, then you're looking at anywhere from 9 to 14 months of play for roughly $30. So I think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, a yearly subscription to an MMO, obviously, most people don't want to have to pay for subscriptions for MMOs. Everybody likes, in theory anyway, the free-to-pay model, but in my experience, the free-to-pay model has ruined quite a few games. In my experience, the Old Republic was completely ruined by the free-to-pay model. I think I got it in about two straight years during the subscription period, and I really enjoyed the game. It's one of the few MMOs that I really stuck with. And when it went free-to-play, I played for about another month and just could not stand, because there was a paywall every time you clicked on something, there was a paywall. I joined back into the game after my subscription ended, and I was going to try, just playing it for free and seeing how it went. And I couldn't equip my gear because for some reason, you couldn't have a hood unless you paid $5 for the hood pack. You couldn't equip custom lightsaber colors without paying for this or that, and it's just ridiculous. I was paying, I don't remember what the monthly charge was. I think it was $15 a month. It wasn't that bad, but obviously depending on your income situation, that might be a little bit much, but $15 a month, and I could do everything that the game had to offer. Or they could nickel and dime me, $5 here, $5 there, to do all the things I could already do. And it added up pretty quickly, and that's why so many MMOs go to that free-to-play model, because they know that they're going to sucker you into those small microtransactions. That's why that payment system exists, and that's why so many games go to it. Anywho, before I ramble too much, the price of fame. Chronicles of Elyria is unquestionably a story-based game. We want the world to feel like you're living in a low fantasy adventure book, but what kind of story would it be if the main character died over and over again with no apparent consequences? Not very believable. It would also make those main characters feel like they didn't have an impact on the world. If someone is special, their presence should be missed and their absence should be noticed. Because of this, Chronicles of Elyria uses a multiplier system in order to increase the death toll for more famous or impactful characters. Intuitively, this makes sense. If some unknown farmer dies, it probably won't have an impact on the overall story or plot. However, if a king or queen dies, it should ripple across the whole continent. Given all that, Chronicles of Elyria breaks up fame into 7 different categories. These categories ultimately identify what the multiplier is. The categories and multipliers are unknown, so ×1, that would be your base, as we saw before. Notable, so 1.5 times. Prominent, 2 times. Famous, 4 times. Renown, 8 times. Exalted, 16 times. And legendary, 32 times. So in the previous examples of a person who dies once per month, once per week, 2 to 3 times per week, or daily, that all assumes you are a largely unknown player. If you've become tightly integrated into the story, however, your impact on the world makes you more susceptible to spirit loss. Someone who's legendary, for example, could die no more than 6 times before they'll have to reroll a new character. More on this in the next design journal. So basically, if you want to be a king or something, it's going to cost you a little bit more. You are going to have to either pay to maintain that spot, or maybe, after you've played a king a couple times and, think, my wallet's hurting a little bit from this, you can step back and go back to your regular unknown, or maybe just like a notable character. But if you want to be like the prominent character in the center of all the action all the time and have everybody know who you are, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. And I think that's kind of fair. So let's see, gaining fame. So we know that the more famous you are, the higher the death toll, but how do you gain fame? Well, you can think of fame or notoriety as how likely people are to know your name in the same village or town, the same country or duchy, or even throughout your kingdom or continent. Given that, there's a ton of things that can grant you fame, from owning, leasing a sizable amount of land in your village to others, to becoming an architect people travel hours to buy plans from, to slaying a creature that's tormenting the county, not country, to being the champion of the Colosseum, all the way to being a notorious highway robber. Among the most direct, though not necessarily the easiest way to gain fame, is to hold a position of power in the local, regional, or national government. These positions of power automatically grant your fame up to some base level, which maps as follows. So the elder or village council would be just notable. Mayors and town councils are prominent. Magistrates, city council, or barons are famous. Counts and sheriffs are renowned. Dukes are exalted, and kings are legendary. As you might expect, this means that if you're king and someone manages to get an arrow between your eyes or a knife between your ribs just 6 times, the king is dead, long live the queen. So, yeah, that's something to consider. If you're a very prominent character, you need to be a lot more careful with your lives. And yeah, let's keep moving on here. Before you start throwing red cards on the field, it's important to note that the fame reputation in the land is graded on a curve. If everyone suddenly becomes notable, well, now they're no longer notable. It's as if they're all unknown again. In this way, the multipliers count not only as the amount of spirit loss you suffer when you die, but is a rough approximation of the relative fame you need to move up to the next level. So, a notable person is someone who has roughly 1.5 times the average fame of an unknown person. Making it to renown means gaining roughly 8 times the average fame of an unknown individual. Getting up to those higher levels of fame isn't as easy as it sounds, but if you do, it has its advantages as well. I imagine it would. Toll caps. What are those? The last topic I wanted to touch on in this design journal are toll caps. Toll caps are limits on the amount of death toll you can pay in a specific period of time. So this prevents griefing, basically. The first toll cap we're considering is limiting 1 toll per 2.5 hours, or 1 Elyrian day. This means that if you're out in the wilds and get killed by someone twice or more in a short period of time, there's no additional spirit loss, even if you're forced to spirit walk more than once. We're doing this because we recognize that if you get put into a bad position, such as being camped by others or getting trapped near an especially dangerous enemy, it could rack up several deaths in a short period of time. So it's good that they're considering things like this already. Obviously, if you did like an alpha playtest or a beta playtest, this is something that you would probably discover and balance accordingly, but they're already considering these things, which is, a very good sign that the developer knows what they're doing. From a story standpoint, however, those all kind of act like the same death. That is, person walks into a dungeon, faces evil bad guy, nearly dies but recovers and defeats the evil being. It's just as interesting as person walks into dungeon, faces evil bad guy, nearly dies but recovers, nearly dies again but recovers, nearly dies again but recovers, and finally defeats the bad guy. You see, the stories are really the same. What happens in between the first spirit walk and the last are just details best overlooked. The second toll cap we're looking at is during wartime. If you're on a battlefield and get coup de grace, you're likely to get killed again as soon as you wake up. I mean, it's a battlefield. So while we'll talk more about the mechanics of realm versus realm combat, something I'm extremely excited for, in a later design journal, one thing we are doing is capping it to 1 toll per 10 hours. However, battlefields are dangerous places and we don't want people to take up arms frivolously. As a result, the first death on a battlefield will likely come with a 4-time multiplier anyways. The end result is that people will try like hell not to die, but when they inevitably do, most likely more than once, it won't come without any additional penalties. So the conclusion is, well, that ends the design journal for now, but the fun doesn't end there. We'll be following up with another design journal in just a few short days. Unfortunately, they haven't. It's been quite a while, and I don't think there's a design journal 17 yet. Our next design journal aims to ease people's concerns about dying while nobility, and also talks about our new earn to play model. Until next time. So before we end this, because we still have quite a bit of time left, I'm fairly certain that there is not a design journal 17 yet. Let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, 16 is the last one, and you can see it's been a while since January that they've posted one. They're still working on the game, and they've actually posted a couple of videos and things since. Obviously, the trailer that we looked at a couple weeks ago, that has been posted since this, but no design journals. So let's actually go ahead, and I wasn't sure if we'd have time, but since we do, we're going to look at the snow accumulation video preview, and hopefully I'll just play this in window, I think, so you guys can see the whole thing. And I don't know how the volume is. I don't think we really need volume to see snow, so let's just turn that off. I don't want it to be like too loud or anything. So we've got snow coming down, and I guess it's just going to accumulate. I haven't seen this yet, so oh yeah, okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's interesting. I don't think I've seen that in the game before. Yeah, so I mean, the weather will have real-time effects. You go from being, or you're hiking through just regular terrain, all of a sudden it starts snowing on you, and now you've got to trudge through like foot-deep snow, and obviously that's going to affect how efficiently you can get around, and especially if you're out in the wilderness or something where you don't want to get stranded there for too long, it could really make a difference. And it looks really cool too. I mean, to actually watch the snow fall and accumulate is really cool. You can see him leaving footsteps, I think. So yeah, I mean, that was cool. It was interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that in the game before. If I have, certainly not very common, but pretty cool overall. The tech in this game is impressing me big time. From all the footage of the trailer that we saw, I was really impressed with the lighting. Obviously, all the alpha game assets are going to be replaced with higher quality textures and models and things like that. So nothing to be concerned about there. But yeah, I mean, the actual like weather and lighting in this game look absolutely fantastic, and I'm really excited for that, because it's so important for a game that's trying to be immersive and atmospheric to have very realistic settings that they put you in. If you don't believe that it's snowing or raining, that can really break your immersion. And obviously the dynamics of that, the sounds, the visuals, it all comes into play. But having something like this is really unique and really cool. So I think that's where we're going to end it for today, guys. It's a little bit short, but better short than too long, I guess. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please feel free to share my videos however you guys see fit, and I will see you guys back here, hopefully, if it ever comes out, for Design Journal number 17.